you doing, man?
What's going on? How are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, of course, not a problem. I just unhooked my laptop accidentally there.
All good, all good. So our podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now. And of course,
Nice.
putting out your record on RCA and all that stuff. So
Okay. Yeah. I got a chance to try to not everything, but I wanted to at least listen in on at least a bit of a podcast before I got on, just so I could have a good idea. And I
uh-huh.
heard I saw that you guys did one with Lil Booty Call from out here, so I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. So yeah,
You like
I got
yeah.
a idea.
Awesome. Yeah, he's great. He was great to have on.
Yeah.
Cool. So are you from San Antonio area as well?
I live in San Antonio.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not necessarily sure like where I'm from 100%, can I say?
Mhm.
Because my dad was military, so we bounced around a whole lot,
Oh,
um,
sure.
just about every 3 years. But I lived here from late 2010 to 2014, and I've only moved back here recently, about a year ago. So I started my music out here in San Antonio, which is why I represent it. Yeah.
Right on. Cool. Well, how did you get into music originally?
How do I get into music?
Yeah.
So my my dad, all of this can just be traced right back to him. Uh, he was since I was born, he was a what they call the minister of music at every church that we've been at. So he's been the music director at pretty much every program. And so I've always been around it because he had a keyboard at the house or was just playing music in the car. And then I was even more brought into it seeing my brother, which my brother's the most talented one of all of us, and it's kind of not fair. And I'll tell you the story of why I say that.
Okay.
He, he now makes a living doing the exact same thing that my dad was doing, but here's how he learned how to play piano. Because we're all drummers. That's kind of the basic thing most musicians know how to do is play drums. So
Mhm.
that's I'm very basic in knowing that. That's all I play. But my dad and my brother play keys and bass as well. They also write, sing, and produce. And the way that my brother learned how to play piano at all was he got grounded in high school. I think he was like a freshman or something like that. He might have been maybe middle school, but he got grounded. And my dad had the keyboard in his room because there was nowhere else to put it. And by the time he was done being grounded, he knew what he was doing on the keyboard because that's all
That's
he had.
awesome.
That was the only thing that was there, and it was just
Yeah.
like this isn't fair that you could just you sat with there was no YouTube or he just
Right.
himself and figured it out. Just like, come on. So
That's crazy. He did, yeah, great. What a good use of his time. I mean, wow.
and the only schooling that he even got from that was he went to Hampton University for 3 years and
Mhm.
went to the music program and learned all the things that he had been doing naturally. He learned what they actually were and how they come together and all that. So yeah, I'm just in a music family. My sister sang my whole life. She played clarinet in high school, and now
Mhm.
she is um, she's a background singer for a gospel artist named Miranda Curtis.
Wow.
My mom sang opera in college, and she now also sings on the worship team at the church that her and my dad are at. My dad still is playing music. He's got like a kind of a not quite a studio, but he's got like a music room set up in his home.
Mhm.
So I've just always been around it.
That's amazing. And is
Yeah.
that how you got your start as far as performing and singing was at in church?
Yeah, to a degree, I should say, because it wasn't necessarily my performances and everything were in church. Though my first talent show was at a church.
Oh, it
Um,
was.
so I was so inspired by my brother. By the time I was in middle school, he had a 3-man group in high school, a rap group, and he was producing.
Mhm.
And it was cool seeing them at the house and just hearing everything he made in the basement. And I wasn't allowed in that room because the only instruments in there was a keyboard and I couldn't play it, but I would still sneak in. So I figured out how to use we had a Tascam 4-track player,
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to use that cassette tape player, to how to use it to record, how to record my vocals on top of the beat. I learned how to make my own beats on that same keyboard as well. Um, so it was in that time period, once I figured all those things out, my school was having talent shows each year, and I just took a shot at it. So I hadn't performed before or nothing of that sort. Yeah, I was playing drums in the church, but I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't had like any true experience other than I love this. This is what I want to do. I was a huge Bow Wow fan, and being around like the same age, I thought, oh yeah, like I could be the next Bow Wow. So
Sure.
I was just full of confidence, and took that, went to those performances, to those talent shows at the school, and just did whatever I could, whenever I could. Um, as a matter of fact, so I got, what was it? I got second place at the talent show, which I was really upset at because I lost to a girl that was clogging. That made me really upset.
Were you singing original material or doing covers?
I was rapping.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I wasn't singing yet, and I was doing original stuff. I was making my beats, writing my verses, and yeah, I remember the song I did. I don't remember how it goes, but I remember like a bit of the chorus or whatever. Uh,
Sure. But still to have a original material that young at a talent show, that's pretty impressive.
it was I did this thing called Fam Five where I produced for like 5 different acts who decided they wanted to also make music in the school. So
Mhm.
I sort of saw myself as Diddy in a lot of ways. Like I have my thing, but I'm also gonna be doing all this other stuff too. So there were 2 other people that performed in that talent show that I had produced for as well, like original songs. So
Oh, wow.
it was just from day one really, really focused in there.
Wow, that's crazy. And then yeah, so then unfortunately you get second place in that one show.
Here, hey, well, the first time I ever got first place in a talent show was years later. It was in high school, but we beat a set of cloggers, so it was ridiculous. I kept cloggers.
Redeemed yourself.
But it worked out good.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so from the talent show, where'd you go next in your musical journey?
Man, so that was, let's say that was middle school. Um, I remember the end of 7th grade. I asked if I could. Our 7th grade was large enough that we had 2 separate lunches, and I remember asking if I could perform at those both of the lunches on the last day of school. So I did that, and that was like my local popularity, right? So
Mm-hmm.
take that same thing in 8th grade, but then I moved in 9th grade. We went to Georgia. My dad had retired from the military, and we were going back to like just a place where we believe he wanted to be. So we're in Georgia. I had lived there before, so I had friends, or at least a friend from before, and his name is LA. He's a artist. I don't even know what label he's with now, but he used to be with Atlantic.
Oh wow.
And he's about to drop his next project. I think he's on like Motown is doing a reboot with their R&B, and I think he's with them, but I'm not 100% sure. But
Wow.
anyway, it's LA,
Mm-hmm.
LHAE, and we have been friends since we were what 4 or 5 years old. And so at that time, when I moved back to Georgia, we reconnect. He was already making music, had done some things in a group, but was kind of backing off of that. But I was still just like going crazy because I just had all this like in my mind, this local success, and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
take it further. And I knew nobody, so I wanted to, just start it up all over again. So we were working together. He had a friend named Mark, and I got cool with Mark over time. He was such a good rapper. I just looked up to him immediately. And so now Mark goes by the name of Freeman. He's still an artist as well. But
Mm-hmm.
3 of us became a group in high school. So I think we might have been 14 or 15 when we formed that group. And so we were a group from about 15 to 20 when I ended up moving
Okay.
to Antonio. So it was a really fun journey. At one point, well, 3 separate times, we put together our own concert at the church that we were at.
Mm-hmm.
It was in that building. So the first one was kind of elaborate. We had about 200 people there, and we we had like scene changes and not scene changes, like wardrobe changes and like
Sure.
interludes, just doing too much. Uh, was one that I'm still really proud of. I forget how old we were. We might have been 16 or 17. But Kanye had just done this big like glow in the dark something.
Mm-hmm.
We were really into like space themed style music. So we had a project called Star Wars, and we threw together a glow in the dark type concert. So we bought all these glow sticks, and we just went kind of literally by foot, school to school, handing out flyers to all the areas and people that we knew. And we
Mm-hmm.
got 500 people in there. And it was probably still one of the coolest shows we ever put together.
Wow.
A lot of fun. We tried to repeat that maybe a year or two later, and it didn't go as well, but still.
Oh.
That was a lot of fun. So we ended up actually, I remember I said we broke up when we turned 20,
Mm-hmm.
but when we were 18, we had signed to this like what we thought was this really legit like Christian label.
Mm-hmm.
And end of the day, everything that you are afraid of will happen to you when you sign a contract. All that's what was happening. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
was the only one who went to school immediately after graduating high school. And they
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh, well, we expect you guys to be on the road a whole lot. Like, you're not going to be able to finish up school. So, I had only been in school 2 months. So it's okay. I got out. We were not on the road very much at all. And when we were driving ourselves several hours. I remember one point, a friend of ours drove us we drove ourselves to Memphis, Tennessee. And
Mm-hmm.
that friend of ours drove us from Memphis to, I think, Virginia Beach. And we went and did we weren't doing our own shows. We were doing one or two songs as like, hey, this is my new act for the guy who like ran the label. He was also an artist. So
Mm-hmm.
we were really just like piggybacking off of his stuff and weren't gaining any of our own things. And also nobody was helping us to gain our own things. No matter how impressive we may have been or were not, either way, it didn't work out. No money,
Mm-hmm.
or very rarely any money. I remember being broke off like each of us got a $20 bill once, but uh,
Once.
it just wasn't. It was a nightmare. When we went to go record our album, we were 19,
Mhm.
and we said, "Hey, we want to go to Tampa. There's these producers that we really wanted to work with." At the time, they went by Baker's Men. That was their name, like Baker's Men. And so we're like, "We really want to go work with Baker's Men. They're fire. They match our style. Let's do it."
Mhm.
Um, he was kind of apprehensive, didn't want us. The guy that was like leading everything, he didn't want us to do it, and we didn't realize why until we finished. So we get down there. Well, as we're going down there, we're told that we only have a week to finish it. It might have been less, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But we had planned out 16 songs, and we're like, a week. Like, well, like we need more time than that.
Sure.
Didn't matter. We rushed through 16 songs. I
Oh, so you
remember,
guys are cutting like 2 a day at least.
bare minimum. And there's three of us.
Yeah.
We all have ways that we like to work and things that we want to go over. And
Oh my
we left,
gosh.
we left no room for us to figure out if we liked the song or not. We were just
Mhm.
like, we basically had promised to deliver 16 songs. And so we had to. Uh,
Mhm.
Plus, that's just what we thought the project needed. It just didn't. It didn't work out. That project never came out officially because
Mhm.
the guy never paid for the mixing and mastering.
Oh, wow.
We went through all of the worst possible things you could go through as young artists signing a deal they shouldn't have signed.
Uh-huh. Oh
We
my
got out of
gosh.
it. Luckily, it was crazy. I don't even know where these guys are anymore, but we were able to contact and get some management, and they were based in New York.
Mhm.
And that management, just going through the contract and figuring out some loopholes, was able to see where they breached contract, and then we're trying to take them to court in New York because apparently, at least at the time, or maybe even still, if you try to when you try to take people to court in New York, it just costs them more for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And so we were banking on the fact that he didn't want to pay for any of those fees or try to show up and all those things. And that
Sure.
turned out to be true.
Oh,
So
that worked out.
rather than deal with all that, he just let us out of the deal. And so
Right.
that's how we got out of that situation.
Oh
And
my gosh.
we did one more project after that. We didn't know it was our last one together, but it ended up being that. And then, yeah, I moved to San Antonio, and I had set in my mind at that point that I did not want to make music anymore. So
Really? You're done.
I didn't.
What were you going to school for when you left to pursue that group?
Was at Fort Valley State University in Fort Valley, Georgia, and I had a full ride scholarship for music, but I
Oh,
was
wow.
part of the choir arts program, so that's how I got my full ride. So even that, even why I left the school makes more sense when you hear this. So
Oh,
I was promised a full ride scholarship, but
okay.
as we were there, we were told by the music director that the school didn't give the music department the money they had promised them. People who had full rides no longer had full rides, and he would meet with you individually to let you know how much you'd be getting. And so I got about as much as would cover a book or two. And I was just like,
Thanks.
the whole point of coming to that particular school, because I wanted to go to, what is it called? Art Institute of Atlanta.
Okay.
I wanted to do audio engineering and things like that, audio
Mhm.
production. But I went to Fort Valley because it was cheaper and the full ride meant my parents had to pay nothing. So I was ready to go anyway.
Sure. Free school. Why not? Right.
Yeah, I was just like, that wasn't the place I really wanted to be. So when that started happening, I was like, cool, I'll just get out of it because I don't want to be here anyway.
Sure.
And yeah, even when we moved to San Antonio, I went back again to try to do audio engineering. I had
Mhm.
applied at UTSA, which is University of Texas San Antonio, and the weirdest thing, they didn't get everything they needed to get from me apparently. So I had to do an appeal, and I did the appeal, and I put in, I think I put in the wrong semester. So they called me to ask me, hey, which semester did you want? Because this sheet said, your write-up says one thing, and what you filled in says another thing. So I clarified it, and then I was not contacted. And so I just wasn't in school. And I'm just here in San Antonio, just,
Waiting around.
yeah. Um, it was just a weird time. I never wanted to be a solo artist. I wasn't singing yet either. Remember that. I was still a rapper. So I didn't believe in myself as a rapper, especially solo. So I was just kind of here. Yeah.
Mhm. And then how'd you get the confidence to start your solo career?
So American Idol was coming to Houston in 2011. I think it was their 11th season. And I was just like, how about I give singing a try? Just figure it out. So I just start practicing mostly in the shower, a whole lot, because I knew that when people would hear me sing, that I got a different reaction, and I knew that because I sang one song on my group's last album, and a lot of people told me that was their favorite song. So I was like, okay, there's something here. I should just try. So yeah, my sister flies in actually. She flies in from Georgia, rides with me from San Antonio to Houston, which is a 3-hour drive. We are at the time it was called Reliant Stadium. I think it's now called NRG, which is where the Houston Texans play.
Oh, okay.
So that's where all the American Idol stuff was that year. You go the first day, you're really in line, just trying to get your ticket to guarantee that you're going to be a part of it the next day. So we spent most of the day doing that. Then finally the day comes. I go audition. I do really well. I get complimented on my look at the time. And so you're in rows of 4, and there's like all these different judge stands, right? So even before I got judged, that was like literally my group was up next, and all the judges took a break, and then my confidence was like, oh no, they're going to change what they're looking for. And so
Sure, sure. Was it the just producers?
no, so you don't even get to them yet. They may have been producers that I didn't know it, but I think they're just people that were like judges given what they were looking for.
Sure, sure. Just people that they chose to
Yeah.
just to kind of decide.
Yeah, so you start there, and then they send you on to producers, and then they send you on to TV judges. So I didn't make it past that part there. they cut off your wristband and make you walk through like this tunnel of shame. It's really horrible.
Oh, what a
So
bummer.
yeah, I rode that 3 hours with my sister, saying nothing, just really defeated. But at the same time, that was the moment that made me upset enough that I was like, I'm going to do this because I did a great job in there, and I know that
Mhm.
I can do something in music. I didn't know what or how, but I wanted to figure it out. And so um, that was the moment that just got me really upset. Uh,
Sure.
I went, I got back to San Antonio. I'm working at this place called Bill Miller Barbecue. Um, and I'm talking to one of my friends there. He's heard me sing, he believes in me. And I say, hey, will you go half with me on some equipment?
Mhm.
So he helps me buy a mic stand and a mic. And my parents helped me buy a laptop. And my friend LA sent me over he had Cubase already. And so we just kind of jerry rigged it so I didn't have to pay for anything. But I was using Cubase 4 at the time as my DAW. And that's how I started. I went to soundclick.com and found some beats and just started going for it. That was it had to be late 2011 because the first song that I put out was January 1st, 2012. It was a song called Morning, and I put it on Facebook and just asked if people liked it. And if they liked that, then I was gonna make a project. So that's how we got to my solo career.
After you put that song up on Facebook, what was the next thing that you did from there?
So after that, I ended up making a project called While We're Young, and I did it under my old moniker, SPZRKT. And it was a really horrible project that had all these different styles and sounds on it, but that was me. I had been trying to figure out what I want to be, how I want to sound. Um, and at first, I was really content going the John Legend route, just kind of like chill, just sing. But that
Sure.
was also the summer of LMFAO. And remember, I used to be a rapper. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had so much fun. All their videos, their music, just fun. So I was like, man, I don't want to not have fun. So I wanted to find a way to merge those two worlds in some manner. So literally, the beginning of my career is a lot of me just figuring myself out. So I did not come out of the gates amazing, not even close. So I put out that project. And by the end of that same year, I want to say I put out another one called Purple Panda, which was like a 6 or 7 song EP.
Mhm.
It was just a random title that I thought people would remember. um, really all that was. But I did a song on that one called Laminin, which was based off of it was based off of a sermon by this preacher named Louis Giglio, and it's talking about how laminin is this thing in our body that helps hold all things together, and it's shaped like a cross. They found out, and so it was just this cool thing that I decided to kind of talk about. I used the beginning of James Blake's cover for "A Case of You," and that was the intro, and the rest of it was just my vocals,
Oh
uh,
wow, that's awesome.
which ended up becoming sort of a staple in my career from that point on, just like just vocals type of songs.
Mhm.
So um, that was the song that caught the eye of a producer named Sango. And
Okay.
anybody that's kept up with me knows just how much Sango has meant to my career. Uh,
Yeah, it looks like he's on a lot of your songs. I mean, as far as I'm looking on your Spotify right now.
yeah, we did 2 full projects together eventually, but that was the song that first caught him. And so
Mhm.
the very next thing I did this thing called SPZRK3, which was a 3-song project in the third month of 2013. And it came out on March 3rd. So that was the whole thing, like 3 songs, March 3rd, third month, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, that's cool. My wife has a funny thing about dual numbers like that or numbers because her birthday's on 10/10. She's got a thing for that. That's funny.
That's amazing. But yeah, we just like, well, really it's me. I had these 2 songs plus the song I did with Sango. So the thing about that is, I can't lie, like when Sango hit me up, I thought he was this amazing producer. He hit me, I think he had like 5,000 followers on Twitter, and I was just like, oh, okay, like he knows what he's doing.
Sure.
I only have like maybe 500, and I was like, cool, all right, he's got a little something going on. And he sends me some beats. I don't understand them. I I just don't like some of them. And he sent me a beat called Middle of Things, and I was like, this is cool, but I don't really love it. And maybe a month later, he sends it to me, but he remade it. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this more. So then I wrote to it, and I just kind of made a story connected to the title of the beat, which was Middle of Things. And that ends up being our song on that project. Um, that song comes out, he reposted it on SoundCloud, and I think the most plays I got on the song might have been close to 1,000, and
Hmm.
that one had like 30,000 after the first day or something like that.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, big deal to me, like
Oh,
just
sure.
massive deal. And that was kind of like, oh, all right, like yeah, he really does have a base, a fan base, and he's really
Hmm.
doing what he's doing. And then eventually that gets connected to Selection because he's part of Selection with Joe K. And so Selection then gets the song and they post it on their page. And at that point, pretty much everything that's happened is stemmed from that moment when a larger audience was able to find out about me. And so
Hmm.
all the music that I made, the producers I was working with, um, even though I was still in the Christian hip hop sphere for quite a while, after that, I think maybe even 2 more years, I kind of focused in there.
Hmm.
Um, the connections that I made from that time period are still in my life today. And, some of the friends I made as well. And that was really just a catalyst for everything that's happened.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because I mean, now look at a song like Blind Man.
Mhm.
You have like 61 million plays on something like that. Like
Yeah.
from that 30,000 played song to getting on these bigger in front of these bigger and bigger audiences. What was the next milestone for you? Like, where did you see it go to, like the million level? And like, tell me about that feeling.
So, man, what was my first? So my first million was a remix of Middle of Things. A producer named Stu. He now works with OVO. But at the time, he was just doing his thing on SoundCloud as well. So Stu remixed it, and that thing, I forget how quick it did it, but the remix hit 1 million, and I was like,
Mhm.
whoa. But still, for me, it's like, yeah, my voice is on the song, but nobody really knows it's me. There's Sango, there's SPZRKT, and there's Stu, all on this.
Sure.
Nobody truly knows this is specifically me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was kind of searching for like, what could I do next to just kind of keep the momentum? And me and Sango ended up we decided to do this project together called Hours Spent Loving You. And it's a short, I think it's 7-song project. Um, so man, we put that project out originally in, I want to say, I think it was March of 2014. So by
Hmm.
April, I remember it was the night before Easter of 2014. Because when I was on stage, it was turning into Easter.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm on stage. Well, no. Before I even talk about getting on stage, I got invited by Selection to do what they call the Sound of Tomorrow. And so a lot of artists had done Sound of Tomorrow, Gold Link, Anderson Paak, LA. My friend, he was already doing his thing ahead of me as well. Um, and it was just one of those really cool up and coming things you kind of had to go do if you were invited, for sure. So it's in LA. It's my first, I think it was my first performance in LA. Yeah, it was. Uh,
Wow.
so I'm being brought in to do this. And it's also the first time I perform and people know the lyrics. I mean, the project had been out like 2, 3 weeks or something like that. Man,
That must have been a cool feeling to hear people sing back to you.
that was my big milestone moment right there. Cause that was just like, whoa, they know this song. They know these songs. And whether it was Middle of Things or How Do You Love Me or The Motive or Jesus My King, it didn't matter. They sang it back to me, and
Hmm.
that was the moment where I was like, whoa, like it's a bit of a drug because you want that all the time now, but also
Sure.
it's a realization like I can connect with people on a bigger.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 people in here, like I can do this.
Yeah,
Uh,
what like a huge validating moment when you're up there singing your songs and you're seeing the crowd sing them right back at you.
yeah, 100%, and it's something that that fueled me from that point on.
And now you have a new song out, Like I Feel, and you have a new project coming out on RCA. How did that all come together for you?
So from everything that I've been doing, um, all the way up until my release, The Everlasting Wave in 2016. Around that time, I got into conversations with an A&R named Tunji. So I don't even know if Tunji, well, yeah, he was at RCA by then. But he had just got to RCA and just kind of decided he was going to, one, redo the R&B, and but two, just make that label just have a lot of great talent. Obviously, RCA has historically had great talent, but I think he was looking for the next generation of it as well. So it was a little frustrating that we talked for a couple of years because I'm like, man, you don't believe, like, sign me. This project's crazy, blah blah blah. You know how you
Sure.
feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're doing great, but he just has the vision. So he had signed Bryson Tiller, her, Gold Link, Khalid, and a host of others.
Wow.
We had this fantastic track record. So of course I wanted him to be my A&R. Like, I wanted him to be the guy to put everything together, to bring me to the label, to help put my projects together at the label and all that. So eventually I signed in July of 2018. After, just like I said, a couple of years of knowing each other. I had been to the office a few times
Mm-hmm.
by that time. And the first thing they did was let me do me, which I really do appreciate. Um, they let me and Sango do our joint project on a major. And it
Mm-hmm.
was cool to do Moments Spent Loving You at a high level after, coming together just based off SoundCloud. So that was just our moment together. But If You Feel, my new album, is really my first moment on a major where it's just like, okay, Xavier, we're going to pull, these are all these producers that we think you'll work well with. We'll put you in sessions. Let's figure it out. Um, versus moments where it was me and Tango, we were our own A&Rs for that project. We have the
Right.
producer, he's producing every song. But If You Feel was like, we're starting from scratch. So Tunji really got to put his fingerprint on this project along with Drew, who is his assistant. And they made this come together very well in a way that I could only have dreamed of. So that's
So
how
Sango didn't work on the record with you on this time around.
he got we. So I love working with him. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to not work with him. So we do have a song.
Okay,
Uh,
well, that's curious because
we
it
have,
seems like he's kind of a big part of your journey.
yeah. But and here's something I've said before as well. So he's not offended when I say something like this. He and I work so well together, but when we work together, both of us, to a degree, are changing our sound. He has his unique style and sound. I have mine. So when we come together, we just try to make a bit of a new one together. But with mine, I felt that people had equated my sound to our sound together, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
What we have is unique, but what I do by myself is unique as well. So If You Feel is probably one of the first times since the Everlasting Wave where you get to hear the diversity of my sound and what I do. I had a project called Pink Lightning,
Mm-hmm.
which, in all honesty, it's an EP and it's short because I had a tour coming up and I needed new music. And so that wasn't very focused, but it was just like, get people excited type of thing. But this is the first project really since the Everlasting Wave where it's completely me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal because the Everlasting Wave was, what, 4 years ago. So it took that time to kind of learn myself, to figure out where I wanted to go. And I love every song on this project because I was able to really have that time to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And were these songs that you have, were you able to work on these during COVID, or was this whole record finished prior to everything locking down? Like, where were you when that all kind of hit?
So we were finishing tour actually in February. So the last day of tour
Oh,
was
so
February
you're on
18th.
the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last day of tour was February 18th in Miami. And so that next week, I came home. Me and my wife went to, I forget the name of the city, but we went about an hour away and just went to this A-frame cabin and spent a few days there together because our wedding anniversary is in March, but I wasn't going to be home. So we just spent that time together.
Oh,
And then
nice.
the very next week after that, March 2nd, I was in LA. So I had sessions set up. I had 23 sessions set up from March 3rd to March 31st, I want to say, or March 30th. Uh,
Wow, 23?
yeah, they
Oh my
put together
gosh.
this list of just amazing producers. They were able to book out one room 5 days a week for me for that whole month, and I just get in a groove with one engineer and get comfortable in the particular space. Um, so what ends up happening is I get there and I'm only able to do 8 sessions before we all got really concerned in lockdown. Like we knew lockdown was coming.
Mhm.
So I was back home by March 14th. I
Oh,
remember
wow.
I think I woke up that day and bought the ticket because I was keeping a close watch, but I wasn't. I mean, I had gone to church while I was out there. I'm still dapping everybody up.
Sure.
I'm like not really worried about it, but every day, the more they talked about it, the more concerned the news got, the more concerned I got, to be honest with
Mhm. Yeah.
you.
I think that's kinda how everyone was kind of weary at first, and then it was like, "Oh, this is really getting kind of scary."
Yeah, I was on the whole "hey, the flu kills more people" thing,
Sure.
but you learn new information, you change your viewpoints, and the
Mhm.
more I learned, the more I was like, okay, like I need to. If we're all going to be locked down anywhere, I need to be home, locked down with my wife, and just I don't
Definitely.
want her going through that by herself either. So I only got, like I said, 8 sessions completed, and I only loved 5 of the songs that I was able to finish. But I'm still happy I like start to finish did 5 songs because a lot of times artists get into sessions and they're just putting down ideas and coming back
Mhm.
later. But I was able
Sure.
to complete those ideas in those same sessions. So that was I got that done. Came home and was like, okay, I've got some singles, that I want to release throughout some time.
Mhm.
And in talking to my team and the label, they were like, well, we feel that, people love much more when you put together some type of project. So they were talking EP, but EP is not in my contract. Album is in my contract. So I didn't want to use extra money somewhere and all that other stuff. I was like, you know what? Let's just go for the album. So
Mhm.
I had maybe 2 songs that I had done at the house that I really wanted to try to um, add on to that, but then I did more as well. And I was able to work with some of those producers that I would have worked with in LA. So that was very helpful. So we ended up with 11 songs that I love, and that's how we were able to do it. Just we had this mindset of going to work with people because that's something I had never done, like getting face to face with producers and get in studio and working with them. I was always working at the house by myself, so I wanted
Mhm.
to get out of that. But in the end, I was kind of forced to go back to my old ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say you ended up having to do that kinda anyway, right, with the remainder of the songs.
Yeah, but it was my comfort zone. So thankfully, that's not something that knocked me out of my groove. I was getting very used, and I'm starting to really love working face to face with people.
Mhm.
Who I needed some type of change like that to bring something different for myself.
Mhm.
But being forced in this situation didn't hurt me at all.
Sure, sure. There you go. How do you feel about releasing, songs right now during the during lockdown or during this point where you can't tour the record?
That might be the only thing that bothers me is like not being able to tour it because this is something that deserves that. We're going to put together a live show for it that people can tune into and buy and all that stuff. We'll put together
Mhm.
an experience, including merch and all those things. But nothing does replace or really replicate the energy of people being there, singing along.
Mhm.
Um, but we can still inspire and still, you know, make a mark in people's lives and be a part of a moment. You never know which projects, which songs are going to stick to people. I'm sure matter of fact, I watched an interview. Bryson Tiller didn't think Trap Soul was this classic, or he didn't think that it would stick to people the way that it did. But you never know where people are in their lives and what that music does for them in that time. Um, So that's how I feel about this one. Is like, I'm not sure, but I have an idea that this could be something that really sticks with people.
Mhm.
So it would be great to be in front of them, but regardless of the situation, it has to get out to them. So I'm happy to drop during this time because of that. And I'm happy to put together these performances in any way that I can so that they can still experience that.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah. I know there's only so much we can do right now, but that's amazing that you're gonna put something out, to kind of go along with the
Yeah.
record release and all that. And thank you so much for bearing with me during this entire thing with all my hiccups. Like I said, dude, I have a surgery coming up next week, and it's been a whole thing. And I appreciate you not being like, okay, this guy.
Nah, man. I absolutely wish the best for you in your surgery.
I
Um,
appreciate it, man. I was like, oh my, like I got so close to the end, and I'm like, oh my god, okay. But yeah, so I really appreciate you bearing with me. But I do have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Advice for aspiring artists, man, do the best you can to find what's missing and give us that. We don't really need replications of what's already happening. Obviously, be your full self as much as you can. Find who you are musically, and that's going to take time. You're going to sound like your influences at first, so make as much music as you can so that you start to find your own voice, your own style. But find a gap somewhere, something that's missing, because that's what's going to make real impact. You're not going to make impact um, talking about how much you have. Everybody already does that. Or just being a carbon copy of your favorite artist. They already exist, and they're probably better. So, there's a reason we love them that much. But what you can give is something nobody else can give at all. And so you have to take the time to work on your craft and become your full own artist, your full own self. And yeah, that's the advice that I would give.